From gas lamps to blackboard chalk, everyday Britain in the 1950s. Step into 1950s Britain, a nation balancing between the shadows of war and the light of a new age. Streets glowed under gas lamps, classrooms echoed with chalk on blackboards, and homes hummed with the warmth of coal fires. It was an era of rebuilding, resilience, and quiet optimism, where ration books slowly disappeared, televisions flickered to life, and families rediscovered comfort in the everyday. From the laughter of seaside holidays to the discipline of schoolrooms, this was everyday life in post-war Britain, simple yet profoundly transformative. Life at home, coal fires and gaslight evenings. For most families, home was the heart of 1950s Britain. Small, sturdy, and warm, thanks to the crackle of a coal fire. Electricity was spreading rapidly, but many working-class homes still relied on coal or gas for heating and cooking. The smell of burning coal was part of the national atmosphere, quite literally, until the Great Smog of London in 1952 forced the country to rethink its dependence on coal. The smog, a heavy mix of fog and soot, blanketed the capital for days and tragically caused thousands of deaths. It prompted the Clean Air Act of 1956, a landmark law that would eventually clear the skies above Britain's industrial towns. But in the early part of the decade, gas mantles still hissed softly in living rooms, and coal merchants made their daily rounds. Furniture was solid, often second-hand, and space was limited. Curtains were thick to keep the cold at bay, and every house had its own rhythm. The rattle of the coal scuttle, the hum of the kettle, and the scent of stewed tea that seemed to define post-war domestic life. Kitchens of simplicity and ingenuity. In the kitchen, British homemakers balanced thrift with creativity. The scars of wartime rationing lingered well into the 1950s. Sweet rationing didn't end until 1953, and meat remained rationed until 1954. Housewives learned to stretch every ounce of butter, make stews from inexpensive cuts, and reuse leftovers until nothing was wasted. Fridges were rare. Most families kept perishables in cool larders or near the back door. By the late 1950s, only about 1 in 10 households owned a refrigerator, and washing machines were a luxury. Most laundry was still done by hand, hung to dry on lines that crisscrossed small gardens or back lanes. Milk was delivered at dawn by the local milkman, his bottles clinking softly on the doorstep. The grocery shop, butcher, and greengrocer were part of every high street. When supermarkets began to appear, like the first Sainsbury's self-service stores in the mid-1950s, they felt revolutionary. The everyday life in 1950s, Britain kitchen may have lacked gadgets, but it was rich in ritual. Sunday roasts were sacred, tea was poured from brown ceramic pots, and home baking was an unspoken art. Housewives became the quiet engineers of Britain's recovery, keeping families warm, fed, and optimistic. The British schoolroom, blackboard chalk, and discipline. The classroom was the forge where post-war Britain's new generation was shaped. In most schools, children sat neatly in rows of wooden desks, facing a single large blackboard. The teacher's chalk was as much a symbol of authority as the cane or ruler, and lessons were often accompanied by the faint scent of polish and ink. Education had changed after the 1944 Butler Act, which made schooling free and compulsory until age 15. The 11+ exam determined whether pupils went on to grammar schools, technical colleges, or secondary moderns. Success in that exam could transform a child's future, opening doors to professional careers previously out of reach. Discipline was strict but fair by the standards of the day. Children wore uniforms with pride, sang hymns at morning assembly, and recited times tables in chorus. The blackboard ruled supreme, and chalk dust was everywhere, on clothes, hands, and even the tips of noses. For millions of post-war children, this was where dreams began. In small classrooms, heated by a single coal stove, guided by teachers who carried both the manners and the moral compass of old Britain. Leisure and escapism, radios, television, and the seaside. As Britain rebuilt, leisure became a precious commodity. Evenings often began around the radio, where families tuned in to programs like The Archers or Journey into Space. But television was the great newcomer, the glowing box that changed everything. By 1956, nearly half of all British households had a TV set, and the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953 became the nation's first shared television spectacle. Cinemas were still crowded, offering Hollywood glamour and British classics to audiences hungry for escape. Meanwhile, pubs, dance halls, and working men's clubs provided the soundtrack of community life. And then there were the seaside holidays, joyful, noisy, and thoroughly British. Families poured onto trains bound for Blackpool, Scarborough, or Brighton. Holiday camps like Butlins were booming, with redcoats leading sing-alongs and laughter echoing down the promenade. Deck chairs, sand castles, and sticks of rock summed up summer. Post-war Britain may have been recovering economically, but the spirit of fun was unstoppable. The seaside represented freedom, a brief escape from factory floors and smog-filled streets into the sunlight of hope. Work, wages, and the rebuilding of a nation. Work defined identity in 1950s Britain. The post-war boom meant near full employment, with most men working in manufacturing, coal mining, shipyards, or railways. Women's work remained largely domestic, though more began taking part-time jobs as typists, shop assistants, and clerks. The 1951 census recorded the lowest unemployment in a century, but wages were modest. The average weekly pay for a male manual worker was about £9 in 1955, roughly £280 in today's money. Yet people made it work. Savings clubs, ration books, and make-do and mend habits carried over from wartime austerity. Cities were rebuilding from bomb damage. Cranes dotted skylines as new housing estates, factories, and offices rose where rubble had been. The New Towns Act of 1946 led to the creation of communities like Stevenage, Basildon, and Harlow, symbols of a modern, forward-looking Britain. Transport was improving too. Trains connected industrial hubs, double-decker buses dominated city streets, and car ownership was on the rise, though still far from common. By the end of the decade, around a third of households owned a motor car, signaling the birth of a mobile, modern Britain. Women, family, and the heart of British life. In the 1950s, women were the steady pulse of the nation's recovery. Wartime had changed expectations. Many had worked in factories or served in uniform. But the return to peace brought a return to traditional domestic roles. The typical image was the housewife in an apron, maintaining a spotless home, raising children, and managing the family's tight budget. Yet beneath the surface, change was brewing. More women stayed in the workforce after marriage, and new appliances, though rare, began to promise easier living. Magazines like Woman's Own and Good Housekeeping blended homemaking advice with hints of modern independence. Families were close-knit, meals were shared, and neighbors were often extensions of family life. Children played outside unsupervised, running through post-war housing estates and quiet cul-de-sacs. It was a world of safety, simplicity, and routine, one where doors were left unlocked and community spirit was unspoken but strong. Diversity and change in post-war Britain. The 1950s also marked the beginning of a more diverse and connected Britain. The arrival of the Empire Windrush in 1948 had introduced a new generation of Caribbean settlers who helped fill labor shortages in transport, health, and industry. By the mid-1950s, Britain's towns and cities were quietly becoming more multicultural, though full social acceptance would take time. Economically, the country was stabilizing. The introduction of the welfare state, NHS, free education, and social housing gave millions of working-class families a sense of security unknown before the war. Television, radio, and print began to reflect a more modern, forward-looking identity. Politically, Britain was still cautious, but optimism was spreading. The Festival of Britain in 1951 captured this spirit perfectly. A celebration of science, design, and national pride. People were beginning to believe again in progress, and everyday comforts slowly began to match that confidence. A country in transition, from gas lamps to blackboard chalk. The title, From Gas Lamps to Blackboard Chalk. Everyday Britain in the 1950s perfectly captures the mood of this decade. Gas lamps symbolize the remnants of Victorian and Edwardian life. Soft, nostalgic, and flickering with the past. Blackboard chalk represented the nation's children, learning and dreaming in classrooms that would shape a new future. It was a time of resilience and quiet evolution. Families built new lives from the ashes of war. Teachers shaped generations who would lead the technological revolutions of the next century. Britain was rediscovering comfort, order, and optimism, without losing its humble heart. Though the 1950s may look simple through modern eyes, it was a complex balance of old and new, soot and sunlight, thrift and ambition, tradition and transformation. From the glow of the gas lamp to the dust of the chalkboard, it was a decade that rebuilt not just streets and schools, but the British spirit itself. The 1950s in Britain were more than a decade of recovery. They were a turning point. From gas lamps to blackboard chalk, the nation transformed its daily rhythms and rebuilt its spirit. In those modest homes and schools, modern Britain quietly found its identity. One cup of tea and lesson at a time. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.